Hi, so today I would like to talk about string theory, M theory, alternate universes, and multidimensional beings. So let's start with string theory. So, what is string theory? String theory is a mathematical theory that says there's some very beautiful formulas, beautiful meaning simple, um, that kind of explain both quantum physics as well as general relativity, based on the idea that everything is a vibrating string. And now there's actually multiple string theories, and some of them have slightly different formulas, but they also work out to explain more or less the same things. And eventually they all came together and realized that they were explaining all the same things, but they were all explaining different aspects of the membrane, and that's why it was called M theory. M is for short for membrane, and so a membrane is something like this over here, where you see it has like squiggles or wiggles, just like the surface of the water. There's waves in it, like it's vibrating in its own way. Um, and M theory, they found that in order to make it really work, you need to have 11 dimensions. Now, around us, we see on a day-to-day basis 3 dimensions. There's the length, there's the width, and the height, um, which is known as the x, y, and z coordinates of a dimension. Now, there's also additional dimensions. So that explains three of them, but then there's eight more. And so what's going on? And that's actually one of the reasons that many materialist physicists say, oh, string theory, well, you can't prove it because we only see 3 dimensions. And of course, you probably have heard that the fourth dimension is time, right? But that still leaves you with, what, 7 dimensions that are unaccounted for. However, all of this stuff doesn't take into account the fact that the universe is not materialist, but is actually a form of pluralist idealism, which, brief overcap, means that everything is mind, but there's kind of multiple subminds. Like I'm a submind, you're a submind, and we're all in this larger mind, and the atoms are mini minds and that kind of thing. So many minds. But ultimately, everything is still mind, because consciousness is the only thing you can really be aware of. Uh, because you can't even be aware of the experimental results without consciousness. Anyways, so basically, like, your measurement instruments are telling you what they've experienced. Now, going back to parallel dimensions, um, and spirituality. So, if you take into account that in spirituality, we've actually known for thousands of years that there's many dimensions, more than three, and there's ways to sense them, and usually that's done with the third eye, or the pineal gland. And one thing that some string theory people might like to do is to reverse engineer the pineal gland and to create an artificial pineal gland in order for them to detect whatever it is that the pineal gland is detecting, uh, as many spiritual people can detect it. So, for instance, the spirit world is always kind of co located, it's not somewhere else, it's just dimensionally shifted. So, for instance, imagine a piece of paper. So you have a piece of paper, and imagine that you are a bug whose length and width is the thickness of the paper. And now you can, like, burrow along this piece of paper. And so, but the paper is completely flat. So this is like the flatlanders scenario, right? But you can also have a stack of papers, and you can go uh, up or down, and that gives you the extra dimensions. Whereas, but you'll still be in the same, x, y coordinates, and so you could have the same x, y, z coordinates, but then have different coordinates of, say, time. So, say for instance, 2 hours ago, there was nobody in this hammock. That was a different time coordinate. And spiritual sources say that there's actually multiple dimensions of time, and this has been corroborated by various time traveling experiments, such as the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia experiment, as well as the Pegasus Project. And so we know definitively that there are multiple dimensions of time, at least three, maybe more. Um, and the reason we know it's at least three is because you don't bump into uh, other timelines and things like this. So you can go around other timelines. And now, though I'm not 100% certain, but it may be possible that some of those dimensions of the cosmos are, in fact, the spirit realm. Though it could somehow be outside the cosmos. I'm not 100% sure here. Um, but say we do posit, like, say, 3 or 4 dimensions for the spirit realm, um, and we have the three for the physical, so that gives us what, seven, and then you know uh, we still have enough room for 3 or 4 dimensions of time, which is pretty much what we experience, and as spiritual or multidimensional beings. And now everyone is a multidimensional being, okay? If you exist, if you have both a length and a width, then you're already multidimensional. So if you also have a height, and you move through time, then you've got at least 4 dimensions. Um, and there you go. So, but if you want to be even higher than that, then you've got to kind of increase your awareness of the other dimensions, and you can do that with your pineal gland, and just make sure it's decalcified. Try to avoid fluoridated products. Drink clean water. Take your supplements. Nutritional supplements. Uh, and do your meditation. And why are we even interested in all of this talk about alternate universes and things like that? So one of the great applications of this is what's known as magic. Uh, and I don't mean the illusionary kind. I mean the kind of the older kind, whereas it's kind of a subliminal influencing of your experience. And you may have heard the terms how your beliefs create your experience. And this is definitely true in many ways. Now, you may have heard of the Ankh, the symbol of life. Oh, here it is. And me, I had an incarnation in Egypt as a priest, and so it was quite interesting in many ways. But anyways, not to diverge too much. Uh, let's just get back to it. So this is the Ankh, and what's fun about this? We would teach the pharaoh how this is actually a god vehicle. We didn't tell this to the commoners because, well, I guess they didn't have a need to know. But now everybody's kind of becoming this multidimensional beings, and if you're lucky enough to be seeing this video, well, then you're gonna know what the pharaohs knew too. So how this works is if you see the flying disc, with the winged disc, so that's kind of what goes in the middle here when you're visualizing this. And so you're the red ball in the center here. And these wings, the yellow wings, they're the wings of your imagination. They're your kind of choices that you make. And then you see here the legs or the tail of the bird, I guess you could say, is white, and it is that of knowledge. So these are kind of all the beliefs that you're holding. And the beliefs are what is telling you where you're located in space time. They're actually telling the whole cosmos where you're locating within all of these membranes. Because all of us exist in a kind of membrane intersection. Um, and now, what's here on top? This is possibility. This is the future. This could be anything. You see, it's zero right now, but it could be anything. And so, by using your wings of your choice and imagination, so there's actually like the top of them is actually blue. So you can use your intuition to look ahead and see the possibilities and choose the possibility that you want. And then you modify your knowledge to then propel your red ball. The red ball is representative of your body into the possibility and experience that you wish to experience. Um, so, yes, another good point is don't let this get too much to your head. While you may be God and co-creator, remember this is a pluralist. This is kind of a toy in terms of that it is a simplified understanding of creation, but it is still a useful one. I mean, I still it's wear it as a pendant. um but you got to remember that there are other beings too. You're not the only one. And so let's move on to that. So there's different kinds of. I want to talk about vibrational shifts, and this is also related to the membranes. Because remember, we're all vibrating strings or vibrating membranes, and so if you vibrate at a different level, and then you're at a certain location, and then someone comes and meets you, then you're going to meet at kind of an intermediate vibration. They're going to move one way, and you're going to move kind of towards them, or they're going to move towards you, and then you'll meet in the middle. And that is why we kind of see that some people, they seem to bring the best out of people, and some people seem to bring the worst out of people, or they bring something out of people that wouldn't necessarily be brought out otherwise. And if you find yourself walking around and it seems like people aren't that great, well, the thing that you can do is you can shift your beliefs and your vibration about what other people are like, and then you will shift your multidimensional self into the versions of themselves, of those versions of them, which are more congruent to what you want to experience. So you can have a loving and compassionate society. You just have to believe in it. Uh, and this is where I wanted to get into escaping from the justice trap. And now the justice trap is a very common disease that I see um, on Earth amongst Earthlings, and it's often promoted by various media sources as something that is acceptable, which I find somewhat disturbing. But basically, the idea behind it is that in this kind of diseased worldview, if someone does something to you, then you should get upset about it and then hurt them in return. And this is kind of a spiral of pain uh, that just kind of, it's kind of like a ball made with lots of spikes, and uh, just gets worse all the time. And so really, that's no way to go about it. You have to realize that, if they do something, then untoward or harmful, then karma will take care of that. You can just trust in creation. You know, and the best thing to do would be to be compassionate and to be understanding, um, and to help them heal and help them see a better way. And one way you can do that is by being a good example. Now, of course, if this is a person that has been, that is dangerous, then I wouldn't recommend physically going anywhere near them. But you don't have to do compassion meditation right next to a person. You can do it remote. So if you have any kind of grudges with any kind of people, or any other kind of complicated, unwell feelings, then you can do compassion meditation. First for yourself, then for your close family members, and then for all those complicated people. And and through these actions, you may help them somewhat. But remember the Ankh, okay? Remember the Ankh. This compassion meditation will be changing your beliefs about those people. And they will be changing your beliefs about people in general. And so it will be, you could say raising your vibration or changing your vibration so that you are experiencing just these kind of wonderful, compassionate versions of everybody, which is kind of what I usually experience, anyways. I don't know about you, but if you're not, then can always work on it. The important thing to remember is that when you blame someone else, you are giving them your power. You are giving away that power. You are the Pharaoh. You are the Pharaoh, and everything that happens is up to you. Now, some people are like, wait, now, look, people are people, and they don't change, and yada, 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 yada. Now, I want to go into some larger vibrational shifts. Now, remember that there can be many versions of a person, and so one of the ideas that people have is that if they're all compassionate and happy and they're walking around in their city and it's a dangerous place, yada yada, then they might get hurt if they're not like all tense and fearful. But really, the tense and the fearfulness will attract whatever beliefs will attract the problems. Um, But that aside, there's also a larger vibrational shift. And what I mean by that is, so say for instance, you may have heard of the Mayas. And the Mayas, the majority of them disappeared around the time that the conquistadors arrived. And there were several other kind of indigenous tribes that disappeared with more or less without a trace. Um, Maybe they just left some physical belongings. And no one's really quite sure what happened to them, except, of course, if you look into spiritual sources, then we know exactly what happened. So they just had a vibrational shift. So they had compassionate and loving societies. Now, of course, uh, we know the kind of the modern representation of the Mayas was not a compassionate group of people, but that's what remained on our vibration, right? Or the vibration of the conquistadors.